I'm Kristen Andre, founder and chief strategist of Andre Consulting Group. I founded my company almost 10 years ago because I love helping people not only succeed, but thrive in their careers and their lives. So many times I meet amazing people who have so much more potential than what they're utilizing. As I engage with them, there seems to be a common theme: the limits they place on themselves. Throughout this podcast series, we're going to visit some incredible people who have created more intentional lives for themselves, those who've had that no limits moment where they chose to grow and they put things in motion to help them do so. We will focus on how you can break through limits. We will equip you with strategies to help you lead a more intentional life, and we will have a lot of fun along the way. So let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to No Limits with Kristen Andre. We are so glad you're joining us, and we are here today with Marjan Holbrook, who is the Executive Director of the Scott Rigsby Foundation. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Well, tell us a little bit about Scott and the foundation and the work you guys do.
Scott Rigsby is the first double amputee to complete Ironman Championship in Kona, which is a triathlon, and it is a total of 140 miles of swim, bike, run, and he did this all with prosthetic legs. Yeah. And the reason the race is so hard is because it's in Kona, Hawaii, and
it's
hilly
hot.
and hot.
It's hilly and hot, and I've been to Kona. It's gorgeous.
Yes.
Great place for a race, but it is not. It's pretty warm.
It's very warm, and this is the top athletes in the world coming to this race. I mean, anyone that's a triathlete, that is the final goal for them in their sport. So it was when he finished this race. What happened is he came back, and a lot of people were coming up to him and saying, "Hey, I was on the couch depressed, and I saw you, and I said, hey, if this guy can finish an Ironman, I can get up and go outside, go for a walk, whatever it is." And he is naturally a giving person, so he started just reaching out to people, and he had this talk at a company, and people were really drawn to him, and he realized that there was a need for this, and people had to hear this message of overcoming your limitations. Right. And that was in 2007, and we're still going strong. And because of him finishing that test, crossing that finish line, we have been able to serve hundreds of people with disabilities.
Isn't that's so cool? Because I've seen the Ironman. I have, one of the guys I know does Ironmans all over the world, and he's in great shape. And you look at him, you're like, yeah, it's easy for you. You're in great shape. And we've talked a lot on this show about limits that we place on ourselves, but Scott can't help the fact he's a double amputee. And it just, most people, you're right, would have given up. I mean, I sit there for myself, and I'm relatively healthy, and I think of, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine the training and the discipline and the dedication it would take to do an Ironman. But just to think about somebody doing it as a double amputee, I remember seeing the picture. You've got the book here that he did, and it's insane to really think about what he had to overcome to get that done.
Absolutely. And not just being a double amputee, he didn't even know how to swim before he decided doing this. He's like,
oh, goodness.
He literally saw a magazine and said, oh, I'm going to do this. And part of what that really has helped, the reason why it's helped so many people is because we all have wounds, and his are just visible, but we all carry around some kind of disability, wound, limitation. Right. And but it makes a difference when you see someone like him do it. It makes a difference to you. It makes a difference to me, because in some level we can still relate. Right. And as time's gone by, at this point, it takes a lot to impress me with athletic abilities, because
no kidding.
I saw a woman complete the Marine Corps marathon, and she's a mom that lost both legs below the knee and one arm and a part of one hand to a virus, Cindy Martinez, and watched her complete this marathon. To see her do that, and for me to have any kind of excuse, it just doesn't make any sense.
It really does. I mean, because I am not, if anybody that's listening has heard many of our shows where I'm not a big exercise person. I believe in it. I know how important it is. You basically have to drag me off the couch. I have to have an accountability person to be able to get me in a normal workout routine, because it's just not the way I'm wired. And I will come up with every excuse in the book. And you're right. You look at somebody like this and you're like, okay, yeah, my excuses of whatever, time, too busy, too tired, my knee hurts, what have you. It's really, they're not valid.
They're really not when you think about it. It's just all about overcoming whatever it is in your head that's holding you back.
Right.
Because the physical part is just a part of this equation. It is a huge part of it. You have to overcome a tremendous amount of logistics go into it. And that's why it's so important to me to be involved in it myself with my daughter. I have a daughter with disability who's in a wheelchair. And when she was younger, I would meet other moms that had older children with disability. And sometimes you would see them wearing scrubs, but they weren't nurses. They just gotten to a point in their life where they were like, okay, well, my job is to be a caregiver, and I'm going to accept it, and I'm going to be okay with it. And I would think, well, I'm going to have to work hard on getting to that point where, I'm okay just being a caregiver.
Yeah.
But as time went on and I saw people like Brett and Kyle Pease, I thought, you know what, there is really, this is just my excuse that I'm using.
Right.
I can't hide behind her disability.
Right. And it's, because I know your family and I know your daughter. That's how we actually met. So I volunteered at our church and your daughter was in my classroom and she is just a little love. She's adorable, like just big personality, but she's got a lot of challenges. She's non-ambulatory, nonverbal, and you're right. A lot of people would just go in and think, okay, yeah, this is my lot in life. I'm going to be a full-time caregiver. You guys aren't like that. Your family is about as active as they come.
Well, but we were there. I was in a dark place. And this is how Scott's story came into our lives. I could not lift Rebecca. I had a bad back.
Yep.
And I was going to the doctors, and the doctors would look at me and say, probably this poor woman with a 2-year-old and a child in a wheelchair, and they would prescribe medication to me. Nobody ever pushed me to do anything with my life because they felt sorry for me. And, they felt that it was okay that they kept prescribing to me anxiety medication and then pain medication. Whatever I needed, I had access to it because I had a bad life.
Because that was the reason,
And there was no one could reason with me. Like if you came to me and said, hey, Marjan, let's go for a walk, instead of seeing it as a kind gesture, I would have thought, oh yeah, well, she wants to go for a walk because her daughters are healthy. And, whatever it was, I had my defenses up. And I was at home that we were living in this like tiny little rental home because we had to move out of our dream home. It was 3 stories and my daughter was in a wheelchair. Again, it was one disappointment after another.
Right.
And I was on Amazon Prime quite a bit because I didn't want to leave the house.
Yeah.
It just seemed like too much work to drag the wheelchair and be in pain just to go to even the store, even to the library.
Sure.
And I would have these self-help books come, and I was reading constantly. And the messages would stick the way, I was telling you earlier about the sermons, by Tuesday, unless I've got notes, I don't remember what they talked about. I start cussing up a storm, and I'm like, wait a minute, like I'm supposed to be.
It has to be, because I haven't been in that, spot. It has to feel like this is never ending, because it's not one of these things where you break a leg and in 6 weeks you're going to get better.
It's your life.
It's your life.
And
forever.
It's just, and you get overcome, and then something else happens that's much worse. And then that becomes your new normal. And
right.
This is, my daughter's also medically fragile. It's not just physical disabilities. So basically I had to assign myself this role of, I'm going to be the sorry mom wearing yoga pants, and this is just the way it is. I'm going to accept it.
So what made you snap out of that though? What made you, because you're not like that, since I've met you, I've never thought of you that way. So that was before you and I met. So what changed? What made you see things differently?
Well, it was a combination of things, but it is the things that really do work for, I think it works for anyone, and that's why we have to be conscientious when we're reaching out to people. Mm-hmm. It was meeting Scott randomly one night and meeting him.
So how did you guys meet?
This is actually a funny story about what a bad place I was in and who I'd become. One of those afternoons, my mother-in-law called me and asked me for a ride to get her nails done. And here my world's falling apart, and this woman calls me to go get her nails done, right?
Yeah, and I probably would have.
Yeah, normally I would have said, and I was trying really hard to set a good example for my girls. So whatever my mother-in-law needed, bank, doctor, I would do it. But this was getting her nails done. And normally I would have made up an excuse about why I couldn't go, but I decided to be honest with her. And I said, well, here I am with a child with a disability and a 2-year-old and on with my problems, and I can't work, and you have a daughter who doesn't have to work. You have grandchildren with fabulous luxury cars, and you're calling me for a ride. And that was, and she was shocked because that was not.
That was the first time you said anything.
Yeah, that was like. So she called my husband at work naturally, asking for a ride to the nail shop. And then she said, Bill, I'm going to give you this check. I want you to get a babysitter, and I want you to take Marjan out for a date tonight. Take her out to dinner. And what a great response, right?
Yeah.
Instead of, what is wrong with her?
Yeah, something is wrong with your wife.
Miserable.
Yeah.
And so he came home, and we had the sitter, and we went to P.F. Chang's of all places. And I was nervous wreck because, what if something goes wrong with the kids?
Right.
All these excuses. And
because a lot of people don't, with a lot of the parents that I know with special needs children, especially ones with medical issues that are highly involved, they don't get out a lot. It is very hard to find somebody to leave them with.
Absolutely.
That they feel comfortable.
I mean, my daughter cannot speak. If something happens, she cannot tell me what happened.
What's wrong?
So I have to stay on top of that. So we were at P.F. Chang's, and we're sitting there, and this guy comes and sits next to me, and he's talking to the bartender about the Boston Marathon. And we were kind of stuck at the bar because we didn't have reservations, and I was not going to wait for a table. And it was right after the bombing of the Boston Marathon, that year we had the bombing. So I was really interested in listening to this story. And so I turned around, and he told me about the race and where he was during the bombing. And he asked questions about us. And I said, well, we don't really get out much. And I told him a story about Rebecca. And he started talking about his mom and what a fabulous person she was, because he has a brother with special needs. Now, talk about volunteering at church. This woman never went to church because back then they didn't have people like you.
Right.
They didn't have rooms where you could go and serve and be a volunteer. So as we're saying goodbye, he says, let me go to my car and get you my book. And I said, oh, what's your book about? And he said, I am the first double amputee to finish the Ironman championship in Kona.
All right. Had you realized, because you're sitting at the bar, had you realized he was a double amputee? Because, I mean, you're not really looking down at his legs.
Like this. I mean, we could be sitting, this is how we were sitting. And, of course, at that point, once he said
that. Well, then you're
that,
like looking down going, hey, I didn't notice. Yeah. Oh, wow.
So he got up, got his book. And when we got in the car on the way home, I said, Bill, something about that guy. I said, I think I've heard of him before. And then, of course, I dismissed it right away. Like, I go to the gym just to use, the only place in the gym I've used was at that point the steam room.
Yeah.
Never anything.
I did. That part I'm familiar with. Yeah.
Never in a million years would I have thought, I would be seeing a space every week in spin class like I do now. But so we got home, and there was the package from Amazon, which came on a regular basis.
Yep.
And it was Scott's book. He'd given me a copy of his book. I had ordered his book, but I didn't remember because I was buying, I was in that zone of comforting myself by shopping or reading self-help books just so I could criticize the person that wrote it, not to learn anything from it, but just to say.
I thought you were trying to learn things from these self-help books.
I would.
You were playing the comparison
time,
game.
It was like, okay, well, you know what? My life's still worse than yours.
Right.
And I was reading a lot of books written by men. It just happened that it was a lot of men's book that I was interested in at that point. And my excuse was always like, well, you're a man, and you probably have a wife who does your laundry for you. So, don't expect me to do this and do my laundry on top of that. But reading Scott's book, it just touched something inside of me. And I just sent him a quick message and said, hey, I just want to let you know this is a funny thing. Look, your book was in the mail when we came home. And that was the end of the conversation. And a few months later, a friend of mine from the gym, well, she's a friend now. She wasn't a friend that day. She was a receptionist at the gym. And I walked in, it was raining, and my younger one had a swim lesson. And the only reason we joined the gym is because they had a child care where Rebecca could go, and I could take Sarah to swim lessons. And I said, I need some help with a wheelchair to put it in my car. Like, well, I'll help you. She's like, it doesn't look like a heavy wheelchair. I'm like, oh, yeah, I can't lift it. At the time, it wasn't a heavy wheelchair. And she said, why not? I said, oh, my back's sore. And she said, oh, I have a son with special needs in a wheelchair. He's like 21 now. She was like, you need to get in here and start working out.
Exactly.
And I went into the locker, and I opened that locker up, and I put my face in it and cried because I didn't want people to see how miserable I was and how, I hated that woman, Robin, who I love now.
Yeah.
Because she just gave me what I needed to hear. She said, you need to get a job. She just.
Yeah.
And I thought, how dare she? She doesn't know who I am. And
Yeah.
But it was what I had to hear.
So that's the wake-up call.
She really, but it still didn't hit me at that point.
And I think that takes some time. So we're gonna take a little pause, and when we come back, we're gonna dive a little deeper into this, because sometimes when we hear those wake-up calls, it takes a while for them to sink in. So after the break, we'll talk a little bit more with Marjan about that. Hey everyone, it's Kristen. Be sure and visit my website at www.andregroup.com. That's www.andreegroup.com. And while you're there, be sure to download my white paper, Top 10 Reasons Your Business Isn't Growing Fast Enough. Now get out there and create your no limits moment. Welcome back, everyone, to No Limits with Kristen Andre. We are here with Marjan Holbrook. And before the break, we were talking about wake-up calls and how sometimes when we're in that dark place, whether it's limits we put on ourselves or life circumstances, or in your case, just the weight of life, the weight of having to deal with, a child that is 100% dependent on you guys forever. So you were telling us about the wake-up call and meeting Scott, and which is, I think, I'm so into like serendipity, which is, I love it. So the fact that you had a date night, it's at P.F. Chang's, and you're sitting at the bar because you can't get a table, that was supposed to happen, yes, which is super cool. But it woke you up a little bit. That and the gym. We talked about meeting there, and we talked about the gym, and your now friend who said, basically,
get it together.
What
are you doing?
Yeah.
And I was surprised because she was so together. And when she told me about her son, and she was a single mom,
yeah,
and she had 3 kids and all this stuff, it definitely made me feel like a loser. Not necessarily motivate me. It made me feel like, what's wrong with me?
What am I not doing?
So I went home, and I got a call from this woman who had seen me in church and said, my name is Melissa, and I'm the volunteer in your younger daughter's room, and I was wondering if your older daughter can come with her. And I said, oh, Rebecca? I said, she's nonverbal. This is for choir night?
Yeah.
Rebecca's not going to sing a choir. She said, yes.
She likes music, though.
Yeah. She said, I lost my sister, and my sister we lost her. She had a seizure in the middle of the night, and I was young, and I've been looking for a way to give back, and I wanted to reach out to you and see. I will take good care of Rebecca, bring her on Wednesday night to choir.
Okay.
And I thought, okay, why not? And then later on, this woman reached out to me and said, hey, I've seen you at the gym. Do you want to go to this run club with me? We're just starting it. It's brand new. And I thought, she doesn't know who I am. But I went just to be nice.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed being with those women. These were strong women that were not necessarily involved with the other things the people around me were. They didn't care so much about the house, the car, all those things that I could not compete with. They were not involved with that. So they were not caught in this trap of where the rest of the world seemed to be trapped in.
Yeah.
Where I couldn't
keeping
break
up with
in.
the Joneses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there was no need to be anything other than who I am around them. And Melissa asked me, she said, can I push Rebecca in a race? She said, we need a special race chair. And I said, absolutely, she would love that. Now, so at that point, I'm running like a mile maybe.
Yeah. Which is about 0.9 miles more than I can run. So you're doing pretty good. So.
And I wasn't enjoying it.
Yeah.
I was like just doing it just to like hang out with my new friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I said, sure. And I said, I know this guy, maybe he can help us with the chair situation. So I asked Scott Rigsby, and he said, oh, I know these brothers, Kyle and Brent Pease. But I kind of didn't follow through with the conversation. And a few weeks later, there was a guy named Greg Smith. He had posted a photo of doing a race with his daughter, and Scott remembered and tagged me in it. And Greg Smith said, oh, yes, I'm involved with the Kyle Pease Foundation. He's on their board. And he said, we're having this get-together. Why don't you and your family come? And we went, and it was a small get-together night before Publix race. And he said, oh, do you want to run with her? And I said, no, actually, the chair was for a friend. And they said, oh, certainly you can borrow a chair from us. And my friend called me and said, I have some news for you. We're moving to Colorado. And I said, well, I've got all this, like,
you're my new person.
Yeah,
exactly.
I got the fundraising going. I've talked about this. And she said, well, I know who can do it. You can do it with her. And I thought, no, thank you so much.
Yeah.
But no, it's okay.
Appreciate the
and I'm
vote of
really proud of
confidence.
myself right now for
Yeah.
going to that yoga class and running a mile. And I asked Scott if he knew anybody else. I said, oh, yeah, you can do it. And I said, no, I can't. He said, well, if I can do an Ironman with no legs, like, why can't you do it?
All right, but see, think about that, because I would have been like you. I would have been like, it is 3.1 miles. Nope, not doing it. But what do you say to that? Like when he says, I have no legs and just did the Ironman in Kona, you're kind of like, okay, yeah, good point. But you're out of excuses at that point.
You're out of excuses.
Yeah.
But
I love that. Like that tends to be the things that get me off my booty when I'm getting a little lazy, is somebody calling me out on it and just saying, all right, look, quit with the excuses. Let's get moving. So did you do the race?
I think it's part of that is being strong enough to have strong friends.
Absolutely.
And I've learned that
huge.
over time to have these blunt friends that that love me enough so that when they do hold me accountable,
right,
I know they're not doing it. It's not a mean-spirited thing. They're doing it because they care about me and they want me to move forward next level of my life.
Right. And that's so important. I feel like the people you surround yourself with is critical.
Number one.
Critical. All right. So what'd you do with the race?
I went ahead and I trained. I did the race, and I ended up actually one of her nurses from the hospital helped me finish my first race just because I'd had an asthma attack because I got competitive a little too much beforehand. And but then we did a half marathon. Gary, her nurse, I call her nurse, but he's actually a nurse in the Children's Hospital.
No, I have seen pictures of that because I will tell you, I think Rebecca has a little crush on him because she came in. They came into church afterwards because this was back when I was still volunteering in her room, and they were telling us that Bill had brought her, and they were telling us about the pictures, and he had pictures of the race and everything. Anytime we would show her a picture of him, she would just grin, and I think she's got a little crush on him.
Oh, she definitely, no doubt about it.
Yeah,
Nurse Gary.
It's adorable.
When we go to an emergency room, we're like, can we be on Nurse Gary's floor? And it's not like a hotel. You can't like request like what we're going to. But you know what? They say they let us do it because we have this great rapport with them.
Yeah.
But it was a combination of the team, and part of this whole thing for me. We're talking about sports now,
right?
But it really changed my life, and it saved my life in so many ways. Not because of race day or even training for it,
right? Because
of the people I was around, and I don't mean just the athletes. When I met Brett and Kyle Pease, I was so happy to know that they were normal and that Brett was not in jail because he had a brother with special needs. All these horrible stories you hear, and then I met their mom, and she's a flight attendant. And I thought, okay, well, she had 3 boys, and one of them is in a wheelchair, and one of them has special needs, but they still lived a full life, and she has a job.
Yeah.
So that I was getting out of that trap that I had placed around myself, was just coming apart and crumbling. And once I got involved, gave 100%. I got involved on their board, and I went ahead and got a job. Robin, that woman that was like
your gym friend,
At that point, she was not a friend. One of her friends hired me for one of my first jobs after coming out of this. She owned an Orange Theory, and she hired me to do sales and marketing.
Okay.
And even when she hired me, she was like, "Oh, I don't think you're gonna have the time for this. I don't think." She's like, "But I'll give you a chance."
We could try it. Yeah.
But you know what? That woman that hired me at that job, she is still one of my closest friends. Just last week, she called me, and I was overwhelmed because I was supposed to get Rebecca's room organized. There was painters coming, this and that. She came and spent the whole day at my house organizing Rebecca's room.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And a lot of that has to do with the fact that I understand the value of what it means when people give to you. Therefore, I am giving to my friends at all times.
And I think that's one of the things that's so cool is you have, like you said, you can make a lot of excuses for not doing things for yourself, or for the family, or for what, I'm going to crawl in my hole, I'm going to stay in my yoga pants, I'm going to do whatever, which unfortunately a lot of people do. You were fortunate enough to get out of that because you developed some friendships that cared enough to call you out. But at the same time, a lot of people stop there, but you're giving back a lot. I mean, you're on a few nonprofit boards, you're executive director for Scott's Foundation, and that's a lot of give back from somebody who would have every reason to be selfish about their time, which I think is awesome. So first of all, I think that's fantastic.
Well, it's because I've had to develop all those self-help books that come into the play because I've had to develop a plan of action for my life and who I am and preparing for it.
Right.
Not to say that it's over. I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah. Right.
However, I have developed a system for my life, and I know what little things I need to do on a daily basis in order to keep moving forward. The first year, my goal was to raise $5,000 for the Kyle Peace Foundation, personally.
Okay.
Last year, my goal was $200,000 for the Scott Rigsby Foundation. So, and that was from my relationships, not necessarily from those big grants and everything else.
Right.
And I the only way I was able to do that is because of the team around me, and because of this underlying plan that I have.
Which is so cool. So what's the time frame? Like when was this conversation at the gym? Like, is this how long ago?
It was about 5 years ago when Robin approached me.
So that's a pretty short time frame. Honestly, if you really think about it, with everything we have going on in lives, for your life to be drastically different. And I know it's been different for, it's been less than 5 years than you've been at this, so if you go back 5 years in a dark place and where you are now, that's huge.
Well, that's the fabulous side of having Rebecca. Yes, there's a lot of challenges that comes with having a child with special needs and the uncertainty. We all have this need to have things be certain, and I don't have that.
Yeah.
So I have to kind of fill that in other ways. So because of Rebecca, I take this good season of my life very seriously.
Yeah.
When I've got a good day and she's healthy, I live it to the fullest. You call me up and say you want to have an adventure, we will do it up, because I don't know when that day is going to come.
A bad day.
Yeah, it could be tomorrow. And the other thing is, she has saved me from some of the things that other people worry about.
Like what?
Well, all these superficial things and owning things. And I live a very simple life. And my wardrobe, for example, is like a uniform. I don't have anything that's like not gray, white, or black.
Oh, look, there we go. It's my color palette. So.
Well, this year I did introduce blue.
I had ventured into navy.
Navy.
So,
So, all those things that some people do it as a way of convenience. I do it as a way of survival.
Yeah.
The little things.
You have to simplify everything else, because your energy and your time have to go to what's really, really important.
Yeah, it's not some trend I'm following. It is my survival. It's, my drinking water. I have to fill up a half-gallon thing of water with every night and put it by the door, because you know what? I don't know how Rebecca's going to be tomorrow morning. I don't know. And I don't want to be sitting someplace in a doctor's office wondering, is there water? Because before you know it, it's been 3 days in a row of not having my basic needs met.
Hospital food and everything else. Yeah. Wow.
So all of that adds up, but I think the most important thing is the friendship.
Yeah. Well, I think the friendship, that's a big thing. Yeah. That's really, really a big thing, and the relationships that bring you there. So we're going to take another pause, and when we come back, we are going to dive into how to take all this information and bust through the limits that you may have set on yourself. We'll be back in just a few. Everyone, check out my podcast, No Limits with Kristen Andre, on Tuesday nights at 7:30. We will tackle the things holding you back and the limits you set on yourself, and equip you with some strategies to lead more intentional lives. Podcast launches every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. on Facebook.com/Andre Group. That's Facebook.com/ANDREE Group. We'll see you there. Welcome back, everyone. We are wrapping up our time with Marjan Holbrook, the executive director of the Scott Rigsby Foundation. So this has been great, first of all. So I am really, really, really impressed by everything you and your family and the foundation, everything does, because it's a wake-up call for people like me who, my excuses, which I throw out just like anybody else, just seem like they pale in comparison compared to all the stuff you guys have going on. And not to say, hey, you could make any excuses or what have you, but I'm not having to care full time for somebody and still do everything. So I really admire everything you're doing, everything the foundation's doing. And what I think stood out to me the most is you were in a really dark place, understandably. And you had people come out that cared enough to kind of call you out on it and say, look, you're better than this. You need to get off your booty, keep moving. I think the way you said you put your head in the locker and cried just a little bit when you heard that. But it's a wake-up call.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to tell you about that locker, by the way. So that locker is actually officially my locker.
Oh, that's awesome.
At Lifetime Fitness, they had a 90-day challenge, and the winner got to have their very own locker with their own key and everything else. And so that same locker, and they were like surprised because everyone picks like locker number 1 or like something in a fabulous place.
You picked your cry locker.
I was like, no, I need this locker because I want to remember the day. I'm never going back there, and I want to remember who I was that day before I began this challenge.
I think that's awesome. So one of the other things that stood out to me was talking about giving back, because despite everything, the challenges you have and the limits that you have overcome and are continually overcoming, you give back a lot. You know, with the board affiliations that you have, with the organization and the foundation, you're not just doing stuff for you, you're doing stuff for others.
I am, however, that is a part of the surviving for me. I think that the more you give, the more you get, and it kind of takes you out of your head. If I have all these little things that I know I can do to make myself feel better if I'm going through a rough time, whatever it is, taking care of myself, you read all these articles about self-care, this and that, and when all else fails, I have to go and serve somebody else. Not necessarily through the Scott Rigsby Foundation always, because that is my job also. Right. But I'll go and pack meals at Meals by Grace or something physical, or interact with somebody who needs help with, whatever organization that needs my help. And I don't ever want to become a person that is only focused on one cause, because there's so many causes out there and we all need to give. Now, writing a big check is fantastic, and I love money and I love taking those big checks, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. It's the small decisions that you make throughout your
every day. Yeah. And I think that's a good differentiator, because we hear a lot about self-care right now. It's a big topic and a lot of people are writing about it. And I 100% agree with that. So people will take things like, taking naps, taking baths, retail therapy, whatever it is to take care of themselves. But you had said that you get more, the same, if not more, back by giving and serving others. So I feel like that's really an opportunity for all of us, because when we feel down or depressed or in a bad spot, our first thought is, how can I get myself out? And I don't know that everybody's brain always goes to, how can I serve? How can I help others? And that in turn will make them feel better.
Absolutely. I think that it's one of those things that we naturally, you want to hide, you want to take care of yourself, but really the right thing is to take yourself out of your mind, just a little break even from your own problems. Sometimes you come back refreshed and you're able to deal with them. Sometimes you need a little more extra help. But for me, always, what can I do? Even if it's just checking on a friend. And when I am going through a good season of my life, it is the big time to give also. When my daughter's not in the hospital and I hear somebody else's child is, I am there. I'm there with the food, the entertainment, whatever it is. And in turn, I have also been at the receiving end of that. So I know how fabulous it makes that person feel to know this person cared enough for me to sit through Atlanta traffic and come to this hospital
and it comes
food.
And it's a community. It's definitely a community of people that are kind of fighting the fight together, and I love that. And so whether or not it's the person going through the same problems as you, or just someone like you said, packing meals for somebody, or going to a nursing home just to sit and visit, because a lot of people there, I have this thing for I love the elderly population, so if you are in 80s, 90s, 100s, I just love those type of people. So, but what I've heard from people that work in nursing homes, and when I've been in healthcare before, a lot of those people don't have people just to sit with them. So it doesn't have to be this big, you don't have to go out and run a marathon or push somebody through a 5K, although that's a good goal. But it can be something small.
There are so many things you can do, and it's what's important to you. If you're worried about, if you're sitting online and you're getting mad because everybody's posting about, the environment is ruined and we're all going to be melting away 50 years from now. Instead of getting angry and responding to that post, next time you go to Chick-fil-A, tell them, I don't want a straw. That little act, it all adds up. I don't, when I go through a drive-through, I tell them I don't need utensils, I don't need a straw. And it's not because, I'm trying to be some big minimalist person and save the world. It is because I know all those little things will add up.
And I think that's a great point. And we talked about this earlier, at the end of every episode, we like to issue a challenge to our listeners. And it's become really fun. We've got a great Facebook page. It's at #NoLimitsMoment on Facebook. And we encourage people to go there and just have a conversation. And for this episode, I really feel that the give back is their no limits moment. That's the challenge this month is, what can they do? So for those of you guys listening, what we want you to do is go to our Facebook page, and our challenge to you is, what can you do to give back this month. So what are a few examples? 2 or 3 quick examples they can do that are super, super easy.
Well, one other organization I love is Meals by Grace. They're wonderful. They have, you go on Sunday afternoon, you can go take your kids and pack up food for the week for a family. I also
and kids can do that one too?
Oh, yeah, that one. On
Perfect.
Sundays, the kids can go.
Okay.
And I also love Focus, which is an organization that serves families of children under stress. You know, and it's just little things. Like when I was in the hospital, Lucy Cusick, who's the executive director of Focus, sent me a hair dryer because I told her my hair is so frizzy, I'm going to scare these children. They're going to think Lion King is walking down the hall. And she packed a hair dryer and sent it to the hospital.
And I think that's fantastic. So what we want to do is get creative, figure out what it is you can do to give back and to help others, and in turn make yourself feel like you're doing something to contribute. So Marjan Holbrook, director of Scott Rigsby Foundation, thank you so much for being with us today. And until next week, you guys go out and push past those limits.